Hi everyone, Mandeep here from The Hungry Orchid. I am here today with a very exciting guest. Her name is Sucheta Rawal. Did I say that correctly?
That's perfect.
Awesome. She is a food and travel writer, and she also has another very exciting project on the side that we'll talk about later. But let's start off with your story. So tell us how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
So I grew up in India.
Okay.
And I moved to Atlanta in 97, and I went to Georgia State to get a degree in finance. So that was my love back then, was number crunching, and I knew I wanted to be working business, and finance was my option. So I did a master's, then I went on to work in investment banking.
Okay.
So completely different from what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
But while I was working in a bank, I had a lot of vacation and a lot of money to travel.
Yeah, you did.
So I started taking big exotic vacations every chance I got, and go to Egypt and Peru and Jamaica and take a cruise, and I came to be known as the travel desk at work because I was the person who was going on this exotic vacation every quarter.
Oh my god, that sounds so glamorous. Good for you.
In the meantime, I was also writing, but writing was always a hobby for me.
Okay.
I wrote for local newspapers and magazines, doing restaurant reviews, but it was not something I ever thought would be a career. It was just, something you do to get a free lunch. Things like that.
Yeah.
But as my friends and colleagues realized that I was writing, I was traveling so much, I was eating out a lot, and I had a lot of resources, they said, well, let's just stop calling you every day for, every evening where to go, but why don't you just start a blog?
Yeah.
And you can write about it there, and you can point us to it. So a friend of mine designed the blog, and I started just putting all my information on there of where I've been, where I've eaten, and here are the places to stay. And it grew from there. My travel style is a little bit different. I also do a lot of volunteer work when I travel.
I love it. Yeah.
So it's not just, stay in a nice hotel, eat out, hop on tour bus, but I actually work in the community and sometimes stay with host families or with other travelers in a hostel. And then we would eat home-cooked meals and go out to volunteer projects for half a day, and then go travel and sightsee for half a day. So those were the opportunities I was also writing about, and people from all over the world started emailing me and saying, hey, I want to travel with you. Can you organize my trip? Or can you take donations to a certain charity you're going to? And I was like, there's an idea there, because not a lot of companies are doing that. Yeah. So that's when I made my blog, which is Go Eat Give, into a nonprofit organization.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And through that, I organize tours for other people. And sometimes there are tours they can come with me, where I show them a culture, or sometimes they're led by other people in a board.
So let's go back to your relationship with travel. So I guess what drew you to this idea of going abroad and experiencing other cultures and really immersing yourself? Because I think that's so important, especially today with the age of social media. So I don't know if you've experienced this. I've definitely fell victim to these beautiful images that you see on Instagram, and people in pretty outfits taking pictures in front of beautiful landscapes. So I had seen this image on Instagram, and this woman in this gorgeous outfit, maxi dress in Casablanca, and she's in front of this fountain with like mosaic tiles. And I was taken by this image, and I was like, I literally have to go to Casablanca just to replicate this picture. And now talking about it, I feel so embarrassed and grossed out by myself. But sometimes you do get caught up in this social media world where you want to live this glamorous travel life. So talk about that. Like how did you cultivate this passion for travel in that sense, where you really want to have an enriched experience and learn about another culture? Like where do you think that came from?
For me, it came from food. So
I love it.
I'm a big foodie, and for me it's just driving down here, your area in Buford Highway in Claremont, I look at all these restaurants and I'm like, I need to go try something new, something exotic.
Yeah.
And when I do, and a lot of times I may be reviewing the restaurant, I start going to this frenzy of research. And I need to find out everything about what are the ingredients, how did they originate, and how people eat back home. So, you've been in Morocco and you've been to a Moroccan restaurant here, and it's very different from the food that you get in a restaurant that what you would get in a Moroccan home. And that was the thing that I really wanted to find out, is if I were to go to this country and go to somebody's house and learn how to cook their food, how is it going to be different?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
My way to find that out was by traveling there, doing research, and if I do volunteer work, I can make friends really easily. Because I'm interacting with other staff members and they're telling me where to go for dinner, where the families go, not necessarily where tourists go.
You mentioned you went to Egypt as well. I know right before I went to Egypt, every time I would tell somebody, I would be excited to I'm going to go see the pyramids, and nobody would be excited. They'd be like, are you crazy? What are you doing there after all that's been happening in Egypt? And once you get there, it's a completely different story. And so how did you get over that? Did you ever have that fear of outside voices telling you, no, you shouldn't go there, it's so dangerous and blah blah blah, you're a woman and you're alone and all this did you ever have to deal with any of that?
I've had people say that and they still say it, but I just disregard it.
Yeah.
Now, you can be in New York City, you can be in London or Paris, and things can still happen. So as long as you are an aware traveler and you're conscious of your surroundings and you respect the culture and you're not just putting yourself in the attention limelight, then I think you'll be fine. I was in Israel too, and in the old city of Jerusalem, where things happen almost every other day. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't go there.
I always say when you enter when you're within new borders, I feel like it's almost like you're entering somebody's home. So how can somebody make sure to be self-aware, number one? I've seen people, I've traveled with other people that just have zero self-awareness, and it's really, I don't know, I think it's very hurtful to the locals.
Yeah.
So how can you remain, make sure you're not overstepping boundaries?
That's really good to point, because I also see that sometimes people travel to countries and they feel like they're still at home. Nothing has changed for them. They are behaving in the same way that they would do in, say, if they were in the US.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it's just plain insulting. Other times you're putting yourself at risk. So first thing I do is research on what are the customs, how do women behave in the countries, what do they normally wear, how do they carry themselves, what is their relationship with other men, especially if you're in the Middle East or Northern Africa, then you don't want to make direct eye contact when talking to other men, or just smile and say hello when you're walking down the street like you would do here in the South. I always dress conservatively.
Regardless of where you are? Okay.
Well, if I'm in Europe or places like that, it's okay. But if it's a conservative country, if it's Southeast Asia or Middle East, definitely. I'll look very conservative, not drawing attention to myself. And, the stereotypical traveler with the hat and the big camera and sunglasses. I don't want to.
You don't want to draw attention to yourself either.
No, and I also buy clothes locally, so that's a great way to just blend in. You don't have to even dress very differently. Just like when you go to India, go buy some long tunics and long skirts, and they're so cheap. They're great when you even come back, and then you look like one of the locals.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you find being of Indian heritage, I find it a little tiny bit easier to blend in. Do you find that at all, or it doesn't matter?
I do. Okay. Pretty much most of the places I go to, they think I'm from there.
I love it.
Except for Scandinavia, I would say.
Yeah. Well, for obvious reasons.
So all of Latin America, I can get by. And then language, if you can learn a few words, the local language, that goes a long way too. At least know where's the bathroom, how to get to the bus or the hotel, ask for directions, order your food, just a little bit like that. And then if you make an attempt, people also appreciate that. They really do want to learn.
Have you witnessed a particularly terrible traveler?
Yeah, I've had, because I take people on tours as well. So sometimes I get people who are just so stuck in their bubble and they don't want to experience that there's something different.
Right.
Like I had two ladies when we were in Cuba, they came and just complained about tipping. And they're like, we are in a third world country and Cuba is so poor. Why do we have to give money when we go to the restroom?
Yeah.
Why do we have to tip extra when we are take a tour of a facility? And they're like, nobody else is doing it, so why should we do it?
Yeah.
And you know, that's a differentiator of American tourist perspective too, because sometimes, yeah, you are in a country where people expect you to pay a little bit more because you're from the US, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
But sometimes travelers take it offensively.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point because a lot of times the exchange rate is in our favor anyway. So I don't always agree with complaining about tipping when you're kind of saving anyway because the exchange rate is in your favor.
Yeah, and I think about it like how I would do here. If I were to go to a restaurant in Atlanta, I would tip 15%.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to a restaurant in Cuba, why not tip 15%
If you're used to it anyway. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Okay, so we're at the exciting part now. Tell us about your children's book series, right? It's not, you have several of these books?
Yes.
So tell us how you got into that, like what inspired, this concept of travel and reaching out to kids.
So I was researching about 3 years ago for a story about kids' books, children's books that teach them about travel and culture. And I went to every library, every bookstore I could find online and just researching like what's out there.
Yeah.
And I really couldn't find a whole lot beyond maybe a little bit on Native American culture, a little bit on Jewish culture, and that was about it. There are not a lot of books out there that teach kids about the world. And at that point I thought, I already have these stories, I've been to these places, I have pictures. How can I tailor what I have, what I've written, to reach out to kids? Which would be really engaging, very descriptive and illustrative. And a lot of it is based on real life characters and places I've been to. So I took my cat, my real life cat, his name is Beato, and he's the main character of the books because...
Is the main character a cat?
The main character is a cat.
Oh, I love it! Yeah.
So he's the one who is traveling around the world in place of me.
Yeah.
Meeting other kids in these destinations who are kids actually I've met. And they're taking him around their country and telling them about their culture, their food, the places to see, the religion, the festivals, and it's the cat is learning, but through that, hopefully the kids and their parents would too.
Yeah. So what is one main message you hope kids take away from these amazing books? I think this is such a great concept and it's so important to give that exposure to children early on. Actually, I meant to tell you, we ran into a family when we were traveling in North Africa. Who they were traveling with their children, and I was like, how do you guys even do it? They had a little toddler, and then their little daughter might have been like 5 or 6 years old, very, very young. And I was like, how did you guys do it? And that was their advice, was to start them young, because the dad would travel for work, and he's like, I would just take my daughter with me. She was at a young age, and give her that exposure, make sure she gets used to this, because we know we want travel in our lives for a very long time. So getting our kids used to that from an early age was really important to them. So I guess, what is your one main message that you kind of want to?
So my main message is to show kids that there are other places where kids live very differently and their culture is so different. We kind of get stuck in our bubble here, and they think like everybody plays video games and everybody has a cell phone and everybody has after school activities. But then you learn about kids in Bali who actually race on stilts and fly kites, and they don't have any electronic equipment, and they don't celebrate Christmas, they celebrate Hanukkah. So just compare and contrast and understand that there's so much diversity in the world.
Do you want to show us what you've got there? This is so exciting. So how many books are there?
I've written 3 so far.
Okay.
So this is the first one. It's Beato Goes to Greenland, and it is, again, I told you, it's based on real characters. So I stayed at a sheep farm in southern Greenland with this family. They were just a mom, dad, and their 8-year-old daughter, Ina. And this is exactly how she looked, how she dressed, that you see in the pictures. And
Oh, right here.
no, that's me actually. That's
That's
me
you,
and my
yeah.
husband. So if you go further in the book, you will see her, and she's also on the cover. So she's the tour guide for
love it.
Beato, and she
I
was
wish
my
I
tour
had something
guide.
like this when I was a kid. So where else does Beato go?
Then he goes to Israel. That was the
Oh my
second
gosh.
country.
I love it.
And
This is so colorful.
here, the message is around religious tolerance and how there's so many different religious sites.
Which we need more than ever now. And do you have a picture of the famous Beato? The
Yes.
real picture?
Yes, I do.
Oh my god. Is it a he or Mr.
It's a
Beato?
he.
Yes. He is a celebrity. I love it. Thank you so much, Sucheta. You're doing amazing work, and I just so appreciate you being here and sharing your story and going from finance to really, really pursuing your passion, which is I admire so much. So tell people where they can find you, and this is your time to plug whatever you need to plug. We've covered the books. What else you got?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, which is suchetarawal.com. And from there, you can find links to my nonprofit organization, which is Go Eat Give. It's goeatgive.com. And the books are Beato Goes To. They're available in Barnes & Noble, Amazon.com, and Books A Million, in your local bookstores, libraries. And that's Beato Goes To Japan is going to be the next one coming out next year.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much again. All right, guys, that's all we have today. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell us below in the comments, how do you make sure you are culturally competent and a responsible travel when you are abroad? Let us know if you have any tips. All right, bye, guys.